Hi, everyone. This is Miranda Ward with the Valuable Voices podcast. I am excited to introduce you to Heidi Bramm. She has an amazing website, HeidiBramm.com, which I'll share. And she has a podcast she's working on. And I'm just so grateful to know her. I love just powerful women, and she is beautiful. My friend Robin Wright actually was on her podcast, a health coach. And so we met that way. So, Heidi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Miranda. I'm so excited to chat with you and your audience today. Thank you for having me.
Yay. And you just have a podcaster voice. I love it. I've been listening to some of your podcasts. So, tell us, what gets you going? I know you got 4 girls. So life, I can't even imagine, but you run your own business, you have a podcast, what kind of got you started and all that?
Thanks. Yeah, we do have 4 girls, and I feel like we almost have 2 sets of kids. We have our olders. We call them our teens because they're 17 and 15, but then we have our littles, I say, and the oldest of my second batch, we'll call it, is 7, and then we have a 3-year-old. So it's almost like we're parenting 2 families, and
Yeah.
we had our first round, right? And then we took a 9-year break, and then we have our second round. And so it's like we have 2 sets of older girls and 2 sets of younger. Like there isn't any middle. They both act like, in each set, my olders act like an older and the younger acts like a younger. So that's been keeping us pretty busy. I kind of have an entrepreneurial spirit. Anytime I've dove into anything creative, or I'm just thinking like, how can I turn this around into provision? And so God has blessed me with that of, I don't just want to do it for the creative process, which I love, but I always have to be like, how can I turn this into some way to create a provision? And so the podcast came about because I noticed after years of doing business, I have an essential oils business, and I've been doing that for 8 years and leading a team and just kind of growing throughout that journey in my leadership as, just a leader, but also leadership of myself and as a mom and with my kids and as a wife. And, it kind of all, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So that's been a really good place to learn and grow and stretch. And I noticed after some certain experiences, things I would try to do before that were easy to me, I couldn't do for some reason. And it came back to throughout those processes and experiences, I had times in my business where felt like I was maybe shut down, or I would say my integrity was questioned. Not everybody knows why you do what you do. And when you're in a leadership position, you're kind of put in the spotlight a little bit and easy to be criticized and things like that. So I noticed that ways that I used to use my voice, I couldn't do anymore, or I wouldn't do anymore. And that's an area of my life where I've kind of been attacked. And so God had been saying and bringing up, like, use your voice. And this was a way for me to use my voice and kind of bring that back in and be a voice to other moms, because also with our health journey as a mom, I'm kind of going all over the place here, but with natural health and everything, our journey with that started about 15 years ago with our second born. And she just, from the moment she was born, was always crying. I would take her to the doctor and they'd say, you need to let her cry it out. They wouldn't actually look at like the root problem of why she would wake up every 45 minutes at night screaming like she couldn't sleep at night. And this went on for her first 15 months. So
Oh my goodness, girl.
Just having people listen to your voice of like, there's something else. There's a reason why, she has eczema on her skin, or she doesn't have a normal bowel movement, and her tummy is always like so tight and swollen. And so we found out by the time she was age 3 that she was gluten intolerant, but it was like my voice wasn't being heard. And so there's a lot of tie-ins there. And so now today I'm doing a podcast.
Wow, I love that. And I can totally relate to a lot of what you said. I was introduced to network marketing 5 years ago, and I feel like my life changed just because I got to be this leader. I got to help people. I found out I enjoyed helping people and lifting others up and empowering others and encouraging others, and becoming a leader and using my voice when I felt like my voice was shut down for most of my life too. Another reason why I have this podcast, I really want women to know your voice is valuable and your story matters, and you absolutely can inspire people. So, wow, that is so amazing. I love every part of that. So good. So Oh my goodness, I feel like there's so many things we could talk about. Oh my gosh. So why Covered Beloved? That's the name of your podcast. How did that come about?
Yes, I connected with a really amazing podcast coach, and she's all about the kingdom. And her gifting is clarity. And so when I had my clarity coaching call with her, she basically took me from A to Z. I have a verse, and it's 3 John. Oh gosh, I can't, is it 2 or 3 or 4, something like that. But it's in 3 John, and it's beloved, regarding all things, I wish for you to prosper just as you're in your health as your soul prospers. And out of that verse and how I did a word study on that, and I was describing what these different words meant, she's like, I heard covered beloved, like God's got you covered as a mom, everything you're doing, like we put so much pressure on ourselves, and what are other people going to think about us? And so it doesn't matter if it's business, motherhood, whatever, God's got you covered. And so that's how Covered Beloved came to be.
I love that. And what I heard from that too is how valuable a coach can be, right? A mentor or a coach where you can kind of share your heart and they can pull out and say, hey, this is what I heard. I've had that happen so many times. So I love that. And I know we're both using Robin as a health coach, and I know she's totally helped change my life in the past couple months, just with food and bringing the Lord into it, and him really saying, no, I made you to, be healthy and strong and fit. So share a little bit about your health journey. I know you've got something to share there as well, not just with your kids, but with your own.
Yes. So our natural health journey, like I said, started about 15 years ago with really just paying attention more to what we put on and around us, how certain foods that you eat can affect your mood or your skin, what ingredients can affect you as far as artificial ingredients, what MSG is, what are probiotics, like all of those health and crunchy type things that are kind of mainstream now, but back then it was like digging. You had to dig for the information. There wasn't as much on the internet necessarily about that like there is now.
Right.
And so that was really our, like any mom does, they research the heck out of things. And so we had to redo a lot. And, other things that were on her list of food intolerances were eggs and dairy.
Oh, wow.
And tomatoes of all things. It's like, how can I make, pancakes without eggs? And so enter in chia seeds or whatever, like that was so new back then. There's a lot more gluten-free options today than there was back then. So we kind of had to do everything from scratch. But as far as my children, that's kind of, what goes in on and around us is how that entered the scene. But for my own personal journey and why I'm working with Robin now today, is there's been a lot of ups and downs with my weight. I mean, even in my family, there's a lot of obesity in my family, diabetes, heart disease, and I'm not putting it like in the genetic code necessarily, but there's a lot of in conditioning, as you're growing up as a child. It was about 3rd grade, my parents actually separated. And so I remember that was like the moment I decided, or the enemy planted this, whatever, that food is my comfort and food is my rescue. And so that was kind of the start of my journey when I used food as something that, God didn't intend us to use, but used and abused food in that way. And so I gained weight quite rapidly, and I was very heavy throughout middle school. And it wasn't until about 10th grade in high school when, I could buy my own food and kind of make my own choices with food. I started a job, and it was a very physically active job. And so I dropped a lot of weight, and I felt like I was in a really healthy spot. And then throughout all these ups and downs and different changes and transitions in life, my husband and I met our senior year of high school, and then we moved out together a year or two later. And it was like that, okay, now you're providing for yourself. It was quick meals, types canned food, Chef Boyardee, or like the box, like tuna tetrazzini, right? All the box cans things. We gained weight together after we moved out, but then we also we're kind of like, okay, this is a little crazy. And so we cut sugar out, I lost weight again then. And then throughout the 4 bursts, it's almost like I've lost and gained the same 40 to 60 pounds. I would say
hear you, sister. You're
6
not
to
alone
8 times in my life. And then it was in my early 30s, I started at a nutrition and chiropractic clinic, and I helped coordinate and co-create their weight loss program. And we used a more extreme method of like the very low calorie diet, like the 500 calorie diet, the HCG hormone thing, although it was the homeopathic version, so you weren't actually taking hormones. But what I thought I was doing a lot of good for, and I learned a lot, but it kept me in that cycle of lose a lot of weight, gain a lot of weight, right? Because it wouldn't hold. And towards the end of that, I think I did maybe 2 or 3 rounds of that program, and then I got pregnant with the oldest of our second crew, on my now 7-year-old. And it's like my body didn't have that set point yet. And so ballooned up really quickly from pregnancy, hormones and stuff, lost all but 20 pounds. And then I was pregnant with our last born, our 4th baby, and still have, 40 pounds of that. It was like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So that's the cycle that my weight and health has been in for the last 30 years, since 3rd grade.
Right.
So realizing, and we just had a guest speaker come into our group with Robin, and she was kind of describing the trauma that diets have created in her life. And it wasn't until that moment that I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I can't look at a chicken breast and green beans and be like happy with my food, because there's trauma there of this feels like all these other experiences. And in my mind, these thoughts that surround that are coming and creeping up again. And so it's really digging in. And Robin, she's so great about teaching about identity, and food is just food. It's like this neutral thing. It's neither good or bad. And so just rebuilding and working on that relationship with food again, and restoring that and redeeming that, which I do believe is going to happen for me. It's just not happening as quickly as I want it to. That's kind of the other reason for my podcast too, is just so that people know, like, you're not alone. I think that's one of the biggest schemes of the enemy, is thinking that we're all in isolation with these problems. And it's like, no, there's actually common thread kind of going through here. And I truly believe the enemy wants to attack our bodies more than anything, because we're created in the image of God, and he hates that. So it's not any, it's not any secret that that's one of the reasons
Wow. I'm so glad you shared all that. I can just imagine all the women listening thinking, I can relate to that. I mean, I can totally relate to that. The amount of diets I've done in my life, the up and down, the yo-yo, the feeling not good enough, the, oh my gosh, no carb, low carb, intermittent fast. I mean, it's just never ending. Like, I'm almost paralyzed and don't even know what to eat on a daily basis. And I know people can relate to that. So thank you for sharing all that. Wow. So many aha moments. I love that. Oh my goodness. And you shared a book. So I would love to hear, kind of your, how like the healing journey, and because that's kind of where my heart is too. My heart is really feeling led to help women heal from those traumas and from that. And I'm not going to remember the name of it. It was Katie Souza, I think. I can post it in here. You probably have it because it sounds like one of your favorites, but I'd love to know just kind of where you got that book and how that's helped you.
Yeah, I think it's called Healing the Wounded Soul. I'll have to check. But, and I think I mentioned this too, but there's books that you read once, or maybe you don't even finish all the way through. And then there's those books you have by your nightstand with you all the time. Her book, that is one of them, and it contains, she really dissects the scripture, and it's biblically based. She has activations in there, but it's all based on how in the scripture it describes that these afflictions are allowed to basically come upon us because we give them the legal right to do so because of the wounds in our souls. And it's healing the wounded soul that's going to just kind of cut off the access and remove the stronghold. And those, I kind of describe it as like this dust that's left over. Like if you breathe something in, you're in a dust storm or whatever, you're out of the storm, but you still have some dust in your lungs and you're kind of coughing it up a little bit, right? Like it's still, those remnants remain. And so that's going deeper in, down to the root of where is that remnant that's hiding out in there that's causing this wound in my soul, and how can I heal that? What does the word say about that? And so she does a lot of great telling of her past and her story. She was, into drugs and got arrested a lot in and out of prison. And so her main ministry is reaching women in prison and helping them heal the wounded soul. But, it can relate to weight. It can relate to cancer, disease, just a lot of our physical body trauma that's left behind as a result of an episode or whatever is creating this spiritual stronghold.
Yes, yes. Healing the Wounded Soul by Katie Souza. And it's funny because I'm just in the middle of it and I'm trying to take notes and I'm like, I just need to get this book because I have it on digitally. And I'm like, I just need this because I want to like underline everything. And like you said, I want it near my bedstand. So thank you for sharing that book. I love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, just because again, I'm getting to know you as well, just kind of, did you grow up in the church? Have you always been a believer, or what's kind of been your faith story?
We grew up Lutheran, so we did go to church and we went to Sunday school. I actually really liked going to church and Sunday school. It was about my confirmation year, about 8th grade, that we stopped going to church. There was something where us as a youth, we were raising money and then we ended up not doing the event and the church ended up keeping the money. And so there was this thing with my parents where they were just like, we're not going to go there anymore.
Right.
So we kind of exited that church, but the seed was planted for faith. And my friend Miranda, and it was, 2008 or 2009-ish. She was another practitioner at the clinic at the time, and that's how I met her. And in one of my sessions with her, she just asked, do you have a relationship with Jesus? Like, do you know Jesus? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, but do you have a relationship with Jesus? Like, do you know him? And I was like, well, and so taking it to the next level, born again in that moment, she gave me this letter that you can find online right now. It's like the Father's letter to you. And it's like, I know all the hairs on your head. I know, this and everything before you were even born. And I created you. It's just this love letter that I couldn't even read. I knew if I tried to read it then and there, I would just be bawling. And so I just kind of folded it up and tucked it in my purse. But that was the moment where I was just captivated, and
Wow.
ever since then, it's kind of funny. You think when you become born again and saved, like it's just going to be like this total joyride, but it is really the joy that you find in it is knowing that God is working through and just kind of stripping off everything that's not really you. There is this image of a woman and it's a stone statue, and it's a overweight stone statue, but underneath that it's her and how God created her. And so this guy's just chiseling off all of this stone that's on the outside of her that's not really her, that doesn't belong, that wasn't part of his original design. And so that's the process we go through, right? This chiseling, and it's not always fun to go through that process, but we know it's for our good and it needs to be done. And that's kind of my story there.
I can totally relate. And I love that. I want to Google that letter and like read that every day too. Oh my goodness. I bet, somebody's doing that right now listening to this, and you're going to change their life. So thank you for sharing that. Wow. That's where, again, your story is so powerful. I can't wait to see what's next for you. I mean, I'm grateful, to know you. I'm excited to watch your journey. What is next? You've got this podcast going. What do you see in your immediate future?
It's funny you ask. So mid-January, I'm starting this immersion for my podcast with my coach. So it's kind of like the next level, okay, you have your podcast, you're serving your audience. It's how do I take it to the next level and really dial in on the people that are listening to me, what would help them find breakthrough, something that's going to change their life. Probably a course is going to be in there, but that's my next step for Q1 of 2021 is stepping into the next level with my podcast for sure.
That is amazing. I cannot wait to hear more. Yay! I'm so excited for you. That's awesome. And I might have to get your podcast coach because I literally just started this because I felt like it was something I wanted to do, but I don't really know where it's going. So we'll see. Maybe it needs to be, maybe there needs to be better direction. But I am so thankful for your time, Heidi. Thank you so much. I feel like there's so many good nuggets from health to faith to just mothering. Again, I would love to have you again. I feel like there's so much more I could talk to you about, but thank you for being on. You guys check out HeidiBramm.com. Check out her Covered Beloved podcast. And sounds like this is someone you're going to want to watch because, again, I can't wait to see just freedom for you. I see freedom for you in the near future. So thank you so much, Heidi, for being on.
Thank you. I'm honored. I appreciate it. Thank you, Miranda.
Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.